all set?
Yes.
Okay. I'd just like to apologize to everybody. I had a planned trip out of town, which was intentionally between our normal finance committee and council, and of course this got delayed by a week. So instead of me in person, you get me on the screen. So hopefully we'll get through this okay. We're actually first we've got roll call. The record reflect Alder Hutchinson, Alder Burnett, Alder Galvin, Alder Johnson are all present. Item C, approval of agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D, approval of minutes.
So moved. Second.
I believe there's a motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item E, regular business. For consideration of possible action, request for reimbursement of 2022 property taxes, $12,017.18 for 5-1523-1, 610 North Broadway for NW Community Clinic, contingent on assessor's determination of exempted status. I'm going to first ask staff to give an overview, and then I'll invite members of the public. If you are interested in speaking on this item, just approach the podium and we'll open the floor. So staff, can you first give us an overview?
Sure. Thank you, Alder Johnson. Yes, we had a request from Todd Bryce from the NEW Community Clinic asking about, once they received their tax bill, they were asking whether or not they had to pay it or if there was any way that they could get that reimbursed or not have to pay their tax bill. We have the information in the packet of the letter that was sent to them, a copy of the assessment letter that was sent to them. But the information is, there's a deadline of March 1st to turn an exemption on paperwork to the assessor, and that was not complete, and that's what generated a tax bill for 2022.
Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Yes.
Entertain a motion to open the floor.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Burnett, a second by Galvin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. If you could please just state your name and address for the record.
Kim Franzen, 610 North Broadway Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54303.
Go ahead, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm here on behalf of NEW Community Clinic regarding an appeal for the property taxes for 2022. NEW Community Clinic purchased property at 610 North Broadway on February 15th of 2021, and in August of 2022 started a new construction project. We are a federally qualified health center, and we provide healthcare services to the community for individuals who are uninsured or underinsured. And we provide about $2 million worth of free services here to our community to keep us healthy. And during the process of purchasing the land and our construction, at the end of 2021, we did not receive any tax bills. We do have property at 622 Bodart Street, which is exempt from property taxes. So we went through 2021 and 2022. We opened our new clinic at 610 North Broadway, and then we received our tax bill. At that time, it was recognized that we had not done the formal process, as explained, to submit the tax exempt status documents. So we have paid the first half of our taxes for 2022, have submitted that, and we have submitted our documents for our tax exempt status to be approved by the assessor.
Any questions?
I have no questions.
If not, is there any, thank you, Ms. Monson. Is there any other member from the public who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the floor.
Motion to close the floor. Second.
There's a motion by Galvin, second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, guys, look, this is one of those things, I think, if you only go through this once in a lifetime, to me, this is an item that's just so easy to overlook and not even realize you need to do this. This just seems like an easy one to me. Unless anyone's got a different perspective on it, I would make a motion to approve the appeal.
Alder Johnson, can I add just 2 points?
Yes.
The number 1 point is, I guess I would want to confirm with Kim what date they actually started their business. I'm sorry, I think you said August of 2022?
So we obtained the property on February 15th of 2021. We ended our construction project and had occupancy and started our clinic hours there on June 2nd of 2022.
Okay, thank you. I
Yes.
apologize if you had to open the floor again, but if anything for exemption, you would have to be 1/1 of 22 to get the exempt status. That's what the state statute would say. And then second, the paperwork that they just turned in is really for 2023 determination. It really wouldn't be for 2022. So those are just two clarifications.
Well, Director Ellenbecker, I thought is the appeal not on here though for 2022?
The appeal is for 2022, correct. But the paperwork was not turned in. They were not open for 1/1 of 2022, and the paperwork they really turned in right now is really going to be give them their determination for 2023's exemption.
So, but does this body have the authority to approve an appeal for 2022?
Any money that you would decide that you would give them for reimbursement cannot go, there is nothing, and I might be deferring to the law department or attorney's office, but there's nothing in state statute that says that we are obligated to reimburse them. This would be all on city expense. It would have to come out of contingency if you were to cover this expense. Attorney Bungert is also willing to speak on this item.
Yes, so as far as a procedural process, there is no mechanism by which a person can appeal to common council for setting aside their property tax in this instance, as far as like retroactively applying a property tax exempt status. Obviously, there are other mechanisms at law. There's Board of Review, there's the Department of Revenue, and potentially Circuit Court that an entity can go forward with. So this is operating more as a constituent request, not necessarily a formal appeal.
Okay, so then why is this even on the agenda? If the form is for 2023, it's in before the deadline, I guess why do we even have this item on the agenda?
Right, so essentially because the entity came forward to administration with their concerns with receiving this property tax bill, thinking that they did qualify for this property tax exempt status for 2022. And it essentially is kind of, because city funding and city money is within the purview of council, it is in your authority to reimburse money if that's a policy decision that council wants to make. So it's not really a legal mechanism or a legal hearing, it's more of a policy decision as a request from a local community organization that's bringing forward the request for this consideration.
Okay, so if we've got that authority, then we can do that, but maybe perhaps I would ask if this is the 2022 tax bill, how are we allowed to use the 2022 contingency fund balance to reimburse it?
That I would defer to finance.
Because we are carrying a balance there.
Correct.
I was just going to say, thank you. It's actually 22 tax bill is for 23 budget, and we would also be paying it out in 23. Because any money collected for 22 tax bill again is really applied to 23 budget.
Okay, well, I'll say it in try.
And as far as we did include closed session language, just because if the alders or the committee want to have any other specific conversations or questions as far as legal positions and things like that, that would be something that would be appropriate for closed session. So just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't feel the need for closed session. Does anybody else?
No. No.
Yeah, Alder Galvin, getting in raised?
Yes, Director Ellenbecker. I'm just trying to understand, you were saying that because the project wasn't completed and they weren't open for business until June of 2022, they weren't exempt anyway. Is that what did I understand that correctly?
Yes, I'm going to say the assessor, has made his determination because they didn't have the paperwork prior to March 1st of 2022. So the determination was made that they are exempt, they are taxable. The state statute would say they would have to be in business as of 1/1/22 to really have gotten that exempt, or by the time they file their paperwork by March 1st, that they would have to be using it for that purpose. So
Using it, or the paperwork had to be in by March 1st?
from the, I don't know if the attorney wants to, would you, whatever you like to.
No, go ahead.
I will let Lacey speak to this.
So we're switching up a bit. Just for clarification, the tax assessments are made on January 1st of the tax year. So for 2022, they were made January 1st, 2022, and this property was deemed to be taxable. Then there's a process by which the entity can submit a request for an exemption that's set by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, but the form and documents are submitted to our assessor. That has to be in by March 1st. A favorable decision for exemption by the assessor would then reduce the assessment from whatever the value was previously down to zero. That process for 2022 was not done. They were appropriately issued a tax assessment letter in September. There's an opportunity to come to the Board of Review at that point. That opportunity wasn't taken advantage of, and then so they received a tax bill. So there's not a process for the assessor to retroactively issue an exemption after it's been assessed and a tax bill comes out. So the deadline is March 1st for that purpose, because then the city relies on that assessment value in their tax roll. But that's the process that starts January 1st. Did that help clarify that point?
Yeah.
It's okay, let me make sure.
Yeah, it did.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you
sorry, I
very
was,
much.
get on Johnson.
Can you just help clarify though, I mean, for them to go to the Board of Review, I mean, they would have to know that a tax bill is coming, and if they don't know that, then Board of Review would seem to me as kind of a clumsy process, right? Because you don't get the tax bill until after the Board of Review convenes.
Yes, but they would have received the assessment letter, which was, they're dated September 14th, and this entity received an assessment letter that had the value at a positive amount, 600, and I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it said it was 600,000 to 700,000, whatever it might be. For exempt entities, their assessment letter would have said they're exempt and had a value of zero.
But I think, again, a person who doesn't do this every day, I think it's a reasonable position to assume that they wouldn't connect the dots on that. Sometimes we get so ingrained in how city government works, we understand it. You have to take a step back and think about what does the average person see?
Yeah, so
And
that's why.
I'm not sure that the average person understand the need to fill a form by March 1st. You know, the assessment value needs to say zero. You know, that's my concern.
Yep, and that's absolutely why it's here in front of you all to make that decision. I'm just setting the procedure out for you, what
Sure.
exists in state law.
And I appreciate that,
Mhm.
yeah. Alderman Hack?
Yeah, attorney, we have these sorts of issues. This is a little different than things we've done in the past for residential properties, but I've always maintained that people can make mistakes, deadlines get missed. People new, like a residential homeowner new to the process, they may not know that the city requires this, that, or the other, and we as a body should always be flexible in pursuit of doing what's right and just. In this particular case, when you had quite a few conversations with the requester, would you feel that they're acting in good faith, that it was a simple mistake, that they've gone through the correct processes for this body to consider it?
So from the time they received the tax bill, I think Mr. Bryce contacted us, started talking about this. I think there was a comment at one point about how infrequently they build, that they don't build new buildings, but I would really defer to them on that. But in terms of just this process, we just first heard from them in December when the tax bill came. Had some internal discussions about the most appropriate avenue, and because there isn't an appeal procedure, Board of Review has been concluded, there's not another administrative review process, this is where we're left with their request.
And the request is for $12,000 and some change. Their other entities have always operated, or at least from what we could tell, is tax exempt, is that correct?
Yes, they have one other property, I believe, on Bodart that would be considered that was.
It's been that way for years, so you can see that the evidence shows that it was an oversight, and what I would argue is that the public good that they provide the citizens of Green Bay, new community clinic far outweighs the $12,000 that the city could, wipe clean through our processes for this oversight. So I think that's reasonable. That's what I would support.
I would suggest
If
if,
you piggyback on that, Alderman, had they submitted this form by March 1st, had they known, I'm sure they would have, we would have never assessed this in the first place. For me, that's even the net reference.
So we don't know that for sure, so I would say if you want to do a reimbursement request, it should be to the extent that you can ask the requester to do a retroactive, the assessor to do a retroactive review of tax exemption status. I would make any decision you make here subject to the assessor's decision, because he hasn't had a chance to review a 2022 exemption, and I wouldn't want us to exempt and pay for taxes for a property that's not exempt. So as much as we would want to, I think it would be appropriate for the assessor, my recommendation, to ask to be requested to do a retroactive review. The information hasn't changed, the time has passed, because if there is a situation where the property wouldn't have been exempt, we shouldn't be reimbursing the taxes, because to your point, they would not have been exempt on March 1st. I can't make that determination, only the assessor's office can, and the documentation for that wasn't submitted, so we'd have to do kind of a retroactive review. You probably want me to suggest
Yeah,
that.
I'd be okay with that, mostly
Okay.
because I acknowledge that their other facility is already exempt, so I think we likely know the outcome, but to your point, if you want to be thorough, I think it's a fair thing, and maybe just add a contingency on there that if for any reason the assessor deems it's not tax exempt, that it come before this board again. So Alder Hutchison?
Yeah, I think, being specific, I think they paid half the assessment. So we owe them, in theory, if the assessor finds they don't owe tax, we owe them the half, the 6,000 back, right? And then we would zero out the remaining.
Actually, I'm sorry, this is really for finance, but we have to pay the county the taxes as a reimbursement. It's not a zero out because we're only one of the 4 taxing entities.
No, in this case, this case, it would be the city's full responsibility. So-
Yes.
Correct,
Go ahead,
but
Diana.
because as of January 31st, fines, penalties, and interest start accruing, so that's why we asked them to pay the first installment until this is decided.
Right.
You are correct. If there's a decision that in 100% of this is going to get reimbursed by the city, then the city would, yes, reimburse them for their portion. We would pay the balance to Brown County. We just have to remember that this is not only 12,000, but we're also at the 3,000 that the city would have gotten from that tax bill. So it's really a swing of about 16,000 it's going to cost the city.
And my clarification point, which I should have said, is in my discussions with them and in the letter that we sent, we suggested they pay the taxes because we can't hold them. And as of tomorrow, they start incurring fees, penalties, because the deadline was today.
Right.
If you don't make at least half the payment, that was the portion of which I discussed with them.
Well, I think that was smart. So it's just so when the assessor, if we so move to have them reassess, that they know exactly what to do.
So for this property, they've already submitted all the paperwork for 2023. So I think the question would be if there's anything remaining for 2022. But their original date of occupancy is part of those documents. So I think we probably have all the information we need to look at that.
Good.
Okay, we ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Alder Burnett?
Chairman Johnson, because of the complexities involved, would it be appropriate to suggest to the city attorney a motion for us to consider? I want to get the wording correct. Thoughts on that?
Well, it seemed to me like the process perhaps was a motion to approve contingent on a successful review by the assessor for what I'm looking for.
For property tax exempt status for tax year 2022.
Yes, that's it.
Yep.
Is that your motion then? Because
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll
That works.
second it. That works.
Very good.
Second.
I'm sorry, there was noise. Was there a second?
I second that.
Okay, so got a motion by Johnson, a second by Burnett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for the discussion. Item number 2, for consideration possible action request for reimbursement of 2022 property taxes total of $14,102.83 for 14-426 612 Stewart Street, 14-410 304 South Quincy Street, and 14-410-A 618 Stewart Street for St. John's Ministries, contingent on assessor's determination of exempted status. I assume we're just talking about the exact same thing here?
Very similar situation, correct. We have 3 properties. At this point, there's been no paperwork turned in for the 2022 or 2023 exemption paperwork. So recommendation would be to hold until the, paperwork has been turned in to determine if there is exempt status on, because one is there is a business on one, there is an empty lot is one of these parcels, and the other one is a parking lot. So, make sure that they all really would be determined exempt.
Yeah, I think if we're taking the same approach as the previous one, I assume we could just, whether we hold it or actually take action tonight, it's really kind of an indifferent thing, because the assessor still needs the paperwork. And you're saying that he doesn't have any paperwork right now?
To determine exemption status, correct, on these 3 properties.
Okay. Alder Hutchison?
Did they pay half the tax, or are they going to be subject to fines?
I'm seeing acknowledgement from that they did pay the first half first.
Okay.
First installment, something was confirmed? Okay, yes. Same situation, I know the same situation was explained to them that it's better to pay it now, so there's no penalties and interest that will be accrued, and then once the determinant is made, it would be the same thing, we would reimburse them if that was a council decision, and then we would pay the remaining balance to the county.
Okay. Diane, I see you're making kind of acknowledging that perhaps, is there anyone, I guess, in the audience that wants to speak to this item? I want to give them that opportunity if in fact they do want to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks like yes.
Move to open the
Okay.
floor.
I'll second that. We have a motion by Alder Hutchison, second by Johnson to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. If you could please just state your name and address for the record.
You betcha. Alexia Wood, 612 Stewart Street, Green Bay, Wisconsin, 54301. So you certainly heard the background information from City Hall staff. We purchased this property. Our Micah Center was originally located at 700 East Walnut Street. We have a property tax exempt status for that location. April 30th of 2021, we purchased and moved our Micah Center programs to a new location there at the 612 Stewart Street. And then we had a new director of finance begin with us in July. So beginning in October, she started reaching out to City Hall, asking what needed to be done to make sure this property was tax exempt. There was a series, she had sent 4 different emails making sure prior to that March window that she had completed what she felt needed to be done for the tax exempt status. She was directed to the multi-parcel tax exemption form. So she did fill that out, which again looks like as a tax exempt organization, the umbrella we're listing our addresses. She then asked and confirmed, said that sounded quite easy. Is this all I had to do? And so we were in good faith believing everything was taken care of until the tax bill arrived. So we did go ahead and pay the first half. I do have the entire exemption request that we're ready to file. We just want to have it reviewed, especially with the complexities of the parking lot and the open field. Have an attorney review it to make sure everything's coded correctly before we submit. But everything should be in place moving forward, but looking for reimbursement given the fact that the steps we followed at the direction of somebody trying to be helpful at City Hall were misguided in terms of what Julie then filed.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Wood? Okay. Yep, go ahead, Alder Gelman.
Just like the last group that was in here, did you receive a letter, like was explained from the city?
I am not aware of a letter personally. To my knowledge, no, Julie never brought anything. I was looped into this in the middle of December when we received that tax bill, and that's when I reached out to the assessor's office, sharing the string of emails and sharing the information we had. That was the first that I personally am aware of any correspondence about the tax bill.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? All right, great. Anybody else that wishes to speak on this item? If not, we'll entertain a motion to close the floor. We have someone else?
Real quick, yeah. So my name is it okay to approach?
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. My name is
Just
Keith.
state your name and address for the record,
Yep,
please.
so Keith Zerkins, and my address is 2095 Green Acres Court of Hobart, Wisconsin. So just real quick to clarify, when we started this process, I'm with New Community Clinic, by the way, so the same, we're partners with St. John's, we provide services within St. John's Shelter. So when we started this process to try to find out like what could happen, what is a possibility for getting a refund, we actually went to NWTC, we went to Brown County, and the Green Bay School District as well. So they told us that all those other 3 entities verbally, I don't have anything in writing, told us that the decision made here, they would follow. I don't know if that changes opinion as far as like finances and whatnot. Certainly if there's anything that we can do to help get those entities to give money back, we certainly would as well. But they said they were gonna follow your guys' decision. I know that's only verbal, but that's what I was provided, just thought. So hopefully the dollars would all balance out everyone's budget equally and not be a $17,000 hit to you guys. Thank you.
Appreciate that insight. Any questions? Okay, can I entertain a motion to close the floor?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Gill, a second by Hutchison. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Unless just further discussion, I would be willing to make a motion, very similar to the first one, that we approve the appeal contingent on receipt of the exemption status forms and an appropriate determination by our assessor in the event that the determination is unfavorable to the exemption status, that it would be brought back before this body.
Can I add one more bit of information? I apologize for not bringing it up. On these 3 tax bills, there also are some special assessments for street improvements. That would be, I just wanted you to know that included in them are special assessments of $761.89 for street improvements. So if you would be approving, if you decide to go down that path, I don't know if you want to separate that or not, whether or not you would want to cover street improvements for these properties.
Yeah, could we get clarification? I did actually notice that in the packet. When we do street improvements, I know we do the 50% on commercial. If the commercial is nonprofit, is that nonprofit still assessed, or how does that work?
It's assessed like other than residential.
Okay, so I think for now, my motion is going to just be restricted to the property tax portion. If anybody else wants to take up the special assessment, I would ask that you do that separately. So the motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
So it's a motion by Johnson, a second by Galvin. Any further discussion? Alder Burnett?
I just need to be recorded as abstaining for employment conflict.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 3-0-1. Okay, any further discussion on this item? All right, if not, we'll move on to item number 3. For consideration of possible action, enroll the Environmental Systems Research Institute, Inc., ESRI software for 3 years at $214,425. Staff? Are there any questions, Alders? Alder Steuer?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to know if is this just normal update software per se? How many licenses we might have, and was this already included in the budget?
I think at this point I would probably turn over to Director Wilkett.
Yes, it was budgeted. Mike Roddick
Right.
put this in the budget. He did a 3-year maintenance renewal. It gives us updates. It gives us all our licenses that we currently have existing. And it's a reduced rate because it was a 3-year purchase. It's the GIS stuff that touches police, DPW, fire, all our open data, and anything parcel on the website. So it's kind of integrated into everything, so.
Good. Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second. Second.
We have a motion by Galvin, second by Burnett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Director Ellenbecker, one other point I forgot, I wanted to mention during the tax appeal stuff. I don't need this in to be part of the motion, but if staff could take a look at how nonprofits are notified for that tax exemption status, just to see if there's a trigger point in there that we can add in that process. So that way, that they're a little bit more clearly or explicitly notified. It's more of a request. Okay, item 4, consideration of possible action, request to purchase a Braco grind laser pavement marking eradicator from Sherwin Industries in the amount of $57,554. Any questions, Alders? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
There's a motion by Galvin, I believe it was a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 5, consideration with possible action, staff recommendation to use the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA allocation for a total of $5,576,888. Item was referred to staff to bring back recommendation from the August 30th, 2022 Common Council meeting. Just a little bit of overview on this, Alders. I did ask the mayor and staff to put before us a total package that was staff recommended, so that way we could get all of them together, talking about it in terms of what they could all agree upon. And then, of course, you may have noticed that the agenda was amended. These were previously listed as individual items. They are now combined under one agenda item. I did that because I thought procedurally this would be a little bit more seamless, so that way, we don't have to have motions to reconsider and open up other items if we wanted to increase an item for any reason, and of course, conversely, if we reduce an item, and how it all balances out. So by keeping it clean in one agenda item, we eliminate all that procedural chaos, and of course, we still have the ability to make motions to amend what's before us, any particular item, and then that amendment would kind of, stand as it is. So on the item. For those, if there's members of the public in the audience, this is purely a recommendation tonight. This recommendation will be forwarded on to the full council for final approval or action on February 7th. It's Tuesday, February 7th. And if there is any member of the public, this would be the item that you would want to speak on for anything that is ARPA related. But before we open the floor for that purpose, I would just maybe ask whether staff wants to provide an overview and or if alders have any specific questions that they would like to ask before we start this process.
I can jump in as the Alder Johnson had recommended that the staff did meet, all senior staff met to determine what are the priorities. As you can assume, we had a much bigger number than $5,576,000 in requests. So we had to go through and come down to what was our remaining balance from the resolution. Now it's broken into 2 categories, and so at this point of unapproved dollars, we had $5,576,880 left. And so that is the package that was put in front of you. We also had to keep it separate of the lost revenue items versus what we call the economic impact. And at some point, there was about $500,000 left, $500,000, so that we have obligated, dedicated to like the 2023 bonding or CIP to use up the remaining dollars out of the lost revenue. But again, that is how the $5.6 million package was pulled together.
Okay, and thank you as well, Director Albecker. I know when we talked yesterday about amending that agenda, there was work that had to be put in on your end, and I appreciate what you and the staff did to make that happen. Okay, Alders, do you have questions, or do you want to open the floor? What's your pleasure? Alder Burnett?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Johnson. I do have questions. I'm not sure the best person on staff to answer this, perhaps Director Ellenbecker, but I noticed some increases. There were some new things that we as a body referred quite a bit of things to staff. I had 2, and Director Grenier did address those with me, and I was fine with not including them. But some of the new projects that were being introduced, those were not things that necessarily were of the council's opinion to pursue. There's one that I'm very interested in, and that's Chief Davis's overhiring police department or putting funding like that without a doubt makes 100% sense to me. But some of this other stuff like tourism project, increased funding, facade project, daycare license support, those are all new. Can you kind of walk us through how those were determined, why they were included? I'm not disagreeing with the decision, I just want to know how that process came to be.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I assume you're looking, because the 5th page was any of the new requests, is that what?
That's
or the very
correct.
last page, yes, it was 1,531,000 with the new projects. Anything else before that has been at least in front of the council or committee at one point. As you can tell, there is a staff name next to each one of them. So potentially you could ask, Chief Davis, or you would also have IT, and then we would have economic development here if you'd want to ask these items, why they thought they were a priority and why they wanted to add them to the list.
So for yours specifically, capital improvement plan, bonding, reduce overall borrowing, yes, like that makes complete sense to me. I'd advocate for that a long time ago. Can you kind of tell me how you came to that decision? Was it just the funds that were left over?
In this case, it was anything that was left of the $10 million, the 10 million lost revenue. So that is, in most cases, that is the only thing that, for capital improvements, we would have to use lost revenue because they would not fit in any of the other categories for economic impact. So at this point, we had 9 points, $4 million approved, the remaining balance, we said, let's just use it for capital. That is how that item as new got added, to just use up the balance. So if we were gonna bring you the package, it was really to use up the remaining dollars.
Okay, and Chief Davis, you had, and I'm sorry, Chairman, if this is out of protocol, it's just easier for me to ask them.
Yeah, keep going, keep
Okay,
going away.
Chief Davis, you have talked about this a number of times. You can just kind of let us know, this is well hashed out in the description, but are you confident that this is enough dollars allocated for this specific goal? And was this at the exclusion of the shot detector system we were talking about at one point?
I think this proposal can take advantage of the fact that we switched from a gunshot detection proposal that cost a lot more to the license plate reader camera system that cost a lot less. We have worked with the finance department, I think, pretty closely on the estimate to make sure we're asking for enough but not too much. And some of it will depend on just how long it takes us to hire above our authorized strength. Right now, if memory serves me correctly, we're about 3 or 4 sworn positions that are vacant. So we would obviously want to fill those first before we get into the contingency fund. So we're confident in the numbers.
There's a news story that Press Times did that indicated that we are fully staffed. Now you're saying we have like 3 or 4 open.
Right.
What's going on with that?
Well, police staffing always fluctuates in an organization with, in our case, 187 sworn positions you can count on throughout the year. Retirements, resignations, unfortunately sometimes we have people get into disciplinary trouble who are excused from their duties as police officers, but it's normal turnover at this point. To be 3 or 4 down right now is actually pretty good as police departments go.
I'm definitely not complaining, it's great news, but that's all I.
And I'd like to say, if you looked at the personnel, there's 2 officers that resigned. And the problem, I've been advocating, Menasha overhires, there's a few other communities that overhire, and when it takes, 6 months?
At least, usually more like a year.
6 months to a year. So when you hire that kid and you give him that badge and that gun, he is not able to go work by himself for up to a year. And with these 2 kids that just resigned now, they're back at it again, trying to find a replace. So by overhiring, what it allows us to do is actually when the guy walks out the door, we've got someone to step right into his boots. When you have 187, I personally feel we should be about 204 to 210. That when you're down to 187, we're down CP officers, we're down detectives, we're down a lot. And then when you have 3, 4, that affects, it's a ripple effect through all the shifts. And so I advocate that we do this all the time, if we can find the resources in the future and make this a policy for our city. I think this is great what he's suggesting. I think it'll do a lot more than a gun detection system would ever do. And if we can get it going from year to year to year, I think you'll see some significant changes in our ability to get manpower out on the road more often.
Yeah, and I agree, and my thought was, is it enough? So behind, so I was copied in some emails from Alderman Weary, and he was questioning that, we're 187, which is excellent. That's how much our funded police department is. But at one point, the budget in years past indicated 194. So I think what he was poking at is where and how and who reduced that number in the budget from 194 to 187. Because if we at some point as a body said 194 is what we should have in the table of organization, is the 354 enough to overhire the 187, or should we use more of ARPA to even hire more additional officers? Can you respond to that? I mean,
Sure.
187, as Alderman Galvin, you wore the uniform, that I would love to have more, and if that means using these dollars to leverage and get more officers, that's where my preference is.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but to your first question about how we got to 187, obviously that conversation happened over a period of years and predates me. When I got here and got into that conversation, I saw one version of our table of organization that said we had 194 sworn positions, but we only had funding for 187, and so really that's all I can hire up to, because if we can't pay for it, we can't do it. So that's where, frankly, I made the decision not long after I got here that we will reflect the number of positions that we have funding for. As far as what the number should be, we are working right now, and in fact today I got a briefing on some work that our analysts are doing to give us some science behind what our staffing levels should be based on the outcomes that we want to see. And I think we're making a lot of progress there, because I don't want to just pick a number kind of at random that feels good. I want to have a business case to give you for what we need. But one observation that I've made that's really interesting to me is we have minimum staffing levels in patrol that are set by our contract, that are safety based, and then if you look at those actually versus calls for service demand, just at those minimum staffing levels through most of the day, we do not have adequate staffing just at minimum staffing levels to meet demand for service. And neither of those things appear to have informed our decisions over the years about staffing levels in the police department. So in having done this kind of work before, I think a good place for us to start is what outcomes do we want to see in terms of self-directed, self-initiated time in patrol, call response times, and those kind of metrics. And then what's our demand for service? And then that sets your patrol staffing level. And then in detectives, what kind of outcomes do we want to see in terms of case clearance rates? And then what kind of workloads do we have? Because another thing that can do is it can actually save you money. If you're constantly using overtime to meet minimum staffing mandates in patrol, then you don't have enough people working there. So lots of things to think about in staffing the police department. But what this proposal does is it just gets us one step closer to at least smoothing out those times when we are predicting that we will have 6 retirements this year, and not waiting until those people retire to hire their replacements. But certainly lots more discussion and data to come for you to.
Yeah, and I support, and you know this, I think you're doing a wonderful job. The fact that we're at this point right now is a real testament to your leadership and ability and your staff, because I know you're humble with a lot of this stuff as well. But my question though is, are you satisfied with the 353, or would you prefer to have more if necessary? Because when we look at some of these other things, it's like, gosh, I would hate to put money towards facades, as important as that is, and I'd rather have you have more money for your objectives.
And I appreciate that. I think I'm satisfied with the number that we have, because the goal is only to overhire by the 6 positions that we anticipate being vacated by retirements by the end of the year. If we add to that, one concern that I would have is if we're still overhired, staffed above what we can afford when next year starts, that creates a budget issue for 2024. And so I don't want to take on additional budget obligations outside the budget development process, and so that's why we have to be a little conservative with this and stick with 6.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
That's all I had for Chief Davis. Can I keep going, Alderman Johnson?
Keep going, sir.
All right, Director Steck-Schulte, about $500,000, actually $600,000 for your area, the increased facade project, increased tourism project, and then $100,000 for the daycare. kind of touch on all of those?
Yep, absolutely. I would like to be self-serving, obviously pointing out the $1.1 million of zeroed out expenses we did before adding those, Alder, just to be clear.
Well done.
So, we certainly took a look at these two. First of all, the facade project and the tourism project funds are both existing programs that were already approved, ARPA programs previously. Just based on current activity and interest level we've seen in both those programs, we're suggesting adding a little bit more funds there. The facade project, we've issued 4 grants at about $630,000 investment. That's usually at least double that. Well, that's a 50% reimbursement grant, so that's been matched by private sector investment of at least double that amount. We have 2 more pending grants that have been awarded but not contracted, about $105,000, and 1 significant project probably related to the rail yard that has not been finalized, is still under review. Would certainly exhaust our funds, and we could certainly like to use funds, particularly the facade program, in relation to the Building T renovations. Folks have noticed the paper transport recent ribbon cutting in the rail yard. They've kind of established their base footprint in that building right now, but there are substantial renovations to that building that need to be accommodated to help them move into a larger part of that building. So we're seeing this as a way to kind of assist with that expansion in that particular building, is by assisting with that if those funds were authorized. Similarly, with the tourism project, we've had about 6 grants issued at about $180,000. Those are generally about a 50% reimbursement as well. We have $70,000, I think, remaining in that project, but we have 2 or 3 projects currently within the system being reviewed. And similarly, with the recent press release that was done with the Sistine Chapel exhibit over at the KI, we've received several other inquiries about funding for that particular program. The $100,000 for daycare actually was originally in the tourism amount. The conversation with the mayor's office came forward. The United Way has currently had a little bit of a study and initiative done to try to get more unlicensed daycare providers actually to become licensed, which we do have identified and agree is a major workforce development issue. So their study indicates $100,000 for seed money that would allow them to kind of help facilitate training and actually get some of these folks who are unlicensed and doing in-home care, actually getting them to become fully licensed and try to impact the actual ability to expand daycare within the city.
Yeah, and I think I can get on board with that, but and maybe this is when we open the floor, we'll let the requester speak, but what's the target? $100,000, what's the goal? How many in-home licensed providers are we targeting?
Yeah, and I think that would be, certainly we would want to talk to, and I don't believe that the applicant, probably assuming it would be the United Way, unless they are actually here.
We have a couple.
Oh, hi guys, how are you guys? Perfect. Yeah, I would certainly defer that question to them,
All right,
absolutely.
thank you. All right, I'm done with this fine sir here.
Till next time.
Yeah, till next time. One final question and I'll be done. Alder Johnson, Director Ditchite. I know it's not on the added list, but one project that's really important to me, even though it's not my district, that would be the Farland Park. And I know the redesign and the restructuring of some things, you had said that there could be some other funds. And I noticed that's in here is the money that's allocated from ARPA. Is that going to accomplish that project in totality?
No, it will not. So we did amend the funding request. Originally, the request for Farland was $650,000 in ARPA funding, specifically all towards Farland Park. What I did instead, and I worked with Alder Campbell on this, was to put a proposal forward for a $1 million ARPA request and split that into seven different projects throughout the city instead of just all of it towards Farland Park. Unfortunately, one of the projects doesn't show up on your list because it ran out of text space, and we didn't know about it until after the packet was published. But there is 7 projects within that $1 million. But for Farland itself, what we're proposing for funding for that is $250,000 in ARPA funding, let me just check my notes here to make sure I have it accurate. It will be $173,500 is available in 2023 Community Development Block Grant funds that we can put towards Farland Park. And then the remaining $226,500 would have to be bonded for in 2024. But what I've done in my project list here is almost all of the projects that I've selected were in our bond request in our 5-year capital improvement plan. So although now we're proposing to bond a little bit for Farland Park next year, we're severely reducing our bond request over the next 5 years accordingly.
Yeah, I guess what I would suggest in that case is because we have $538,000 allocated to reduce overall borrowing, that we could just shift that to the Farland Park project and make it a whole. I mean, that's probably a discussion for us to have, but that makes the most sense. That way we don't have to worry about Farland Park borrowing in the future. It's just kind of like cancels out, in other words.
Yeah, the only thing that you would have to take into consideration is we were going to request that money for Farland in 2024, so it wouldn't reduce our 2023 request from what's already listed. So that's just for consideration.
Right, that's all, Chairman Johnson, thank you.
Yeah, I think, Alderman, to that point, I think kind of the equivalent, right? If you did that, you'd end up paying really a year's worth of interest on a bond that maybe you could avoid.
Sure, that's a fair point.
Okay.
Now, I know you're there, Chairman Johnson, we have two alders. Alder Campbell raised his hand, this is relevant to him, and then Alderman Stoyer raised his hand as well.
Yeah, why don't we go to Alder Campbell first, and stands up there. You could stay here.
So I just want to clarify that we did sit down and discuss this project, and I somewhat agreed on solving the situation. We sketched out the park, and I mean, it really does address the problems that have existed and continue to grow at Farland Park, mostly with the parking of the end of the streets. It was a poor design. This should take care of that to start, and it does get the project going. We talked about the plumbing and utilizing the parking. I mean, if you look at the sketch and everything, I mean, this does get it off the ground, and it does go there. I surely understand that, and with the progress of the year after and the following with the funds that we discussed, hopefully that doesn't go away and it continues to get the project done, and maybe it could stem on some private donations along the way that possibly I could work toward. That might be. But I think it does shoehorn, it does handle all the situations that were existing here, and that's what I was satisfied with as far as my constituents and seeing the park utilized to its full extent, and including the parking and so on. So, that's what, I think they did a good job there, and I'm glad we finally got to this stage. So, and I appreciate the extra, and we'll see what we can do, but I think this is a good start. Thank you.
So Alder Campbell, appreciate you meeting with Director Ditchite, and of course, our conversation at the last council meeting when we debated ARPA, there was sort of that verbal commitment acknowledgement from council that, this project would be included. I hope that satisfies that request on your part too. So it sounds like it does.
Alderman Weary's trying to get in. He texted me. I see he's on the list now. Never mind.
Yeah, Alder Stoyer.
Thank you, Chair. Director, could you, what was the other item that wasn't on there?
We had a $90,000 request for playground equipment replacement at Murphy Park.
Okay.
That was in our 2023 bond request. So by approving this ARPA funding, we can reduce our 2023 request by that amount.
Okay.
That was the one that didn't show up on the list. The other one that was currently listed in our 2023 request was the tennis court resurfacing at East High School, Joannes Park. That one was also in our 2023 request. All of the other projects were listed in future years for bonding.
Could I ask one other question? I thought we had discussed maybe at one time about Fisk Park, West High School, the courts over there, and I know the school district was going to be involved in that as well. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so in regards to Fisk Park, we actually bonded for that money last year, so that money is available, and the project is currently out to bid right now. I do want to mention that all of the projects that I selected in this ARPA request are located within the qualified census tracts. So Fisk Park, I don't think is within those boundaries, but everything listed in my project list is.
Where's that map? I'd like to see.
That kind of surprises me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can double check that, I'm just going off of memory, but I
All
don't
right.
think it's in the
Well, I know that
census
there was some
tract.
concern that there's going to be a lag in time, with the update.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if we're moving forward with that.
It's currently out to bid and it will be constructed this summer or resurfaced.
All right, thank you.
If I could, just to jump in on that, tennis courts. East High, West High, those courts are painted in the school colors, if I remember correctly.
They can be, yes. There's no additional cost
Right.
for picking colors.
Do the schools kick in for that at all?
Yeah, so this is a 50-50
Okay.
split with the city for both the ones at East High and West.
All right, that's just good to know, and it's not like we're bearing all the costs.
Correct.
The
Yep.
schools benefit from having those courts there, and they're,
So in this ARPA request, I'm only requesting half of the funding for the total project.
all right, thank you.
Director Ditchard, if you could, because you brought it up, and I think it's important to reinforce for everybody, could you speak to that qualified census tract requirement?
I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that. I know that there's a map that's available where you can see where the majority of the funding can be allocated for the ARPA funds. And the rest of the funding, if you want to use it outside of those boundaries, you have to use our other pot of money, which is the lost revenue calculation. Otherwise, I think all of the funding has to pretty much stay within those boundaries. But I could be wrong. Like I said, I'd have to defer to Director Ellenbach on that.
Yeah, no, and you kind of hit the broader point that I wanted to take home, which is, you know, we don't have full liberty to do whatever we want with this funding, that there are restrictions, including the geographic location of where some of these investments are. Okay, any other questions for Dr. Ditchard? Alder Galvin, were you stretching, or were you bringing your hand down?
Oh, I was getting ready to ask a question of Director Grenier.
Okay, Director Grenier?
The request for, on the sidewalks, I'm trying to find it again. I had it here and I lost it.
Page 5 of 7.
In the far right-hand column, it says reduced by half contractors not available. Is that reduce in half the 550,000 in column number 4, or the original request of $1.8 million?
No, I think the intent originally was to reduce the original 1.8, and then I think what you heard from Director Ellenbecker earlier tonight, they were looking at where some of that, well, this may just be how much money was left in that pool, and it got reduced from the 900 to the 550.
All right, I was just concerned that we were going to reduce in half the 550.
Nope, the 550 is the funding amount
That
that
is correct.
is being proposed.
All right, thanks so much, appreciate it.
Any other questions? Otherwise, it would maybe entertain a motion to open the floor for interested parties.
I was just wondering, Chris Weary, I think, wanted to speak. I don't know if anyone's in contact with him.
He's there.
Yeah.
I was-
Alder Wery, did you have any questions?
No, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, but I'm just observing. Thanks, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would make a motion, we open the floor for any interested
I'll
parties.
second that.
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, if we have any interested members from the public who wish to speak on any items that are proposed right now, if you could just please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Sarah Inman. I'm from Brown County United Way, 112 North Adams Street, Suite 201, and
Jamie Trampty Brassfield, Family and Child Care Resources of Northeast of Wisconsin at 201 West Walnut Street, Green Bay, 54303.
I think I gave you zero.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. So we're here to speak on behalf of, I believe it's item number 25 in the packet, daycare license fees, line item for $100,000. So this is part of a series of childcare innovation recommendations that we shared with the mayor's office to improve access and quality of childcare in the city of Green Bay. So funding would be used for things like background checks, renovations, fencing, fingerprinting, age-appropriate materials, cost of application to apply for a license, for either group or home-based centers within the city of Green Bay. We know in general, and Jamie has tons of data from her organization, childcare was a critical need before the pandemic, and it certainly has been exacerbated since then. One of many issues that have been. We know that access within the city of Green Bay is limited, and there were a number of slots that were lost, over 500, I think, within the city of Green Bay during the pandemic, 583, either group or home-based regulated slots. Childcare in general, this recommendation is important for economic thrivability within the city of Green Bay, because we know for a fact that when children receive high-quality care, then they are supported developmentally in their earliest years, when their brain development, that window of opportunity, is open the widest, and then they're ready to start school, not only just to be there, but also to thrive and succeed.
And then it's also the economic support that happens when families have reliable, high-quality care for their children. There have been studies that have shown employees are more, they're more productive, they're more available to work, which again would just help the economic situation in the city of Green Bay.
Yeah, thank you for both being here. Could you kind of explain how the money would flow through City ARPA, through United Way to Jamie's organization? How does that all work?
Yeah. As I mentioned, we, through United Way, Jamie and their executive director, Paula Breeze, a number of other childcare experts in the community came together with us to look at a number of innovations, and this is one of our top recommendations. So the dollars would flow through United Way as part of that comprehensive packet of solutions. We would contract with Family and Childcare Resources around anticipated outputs, outcomes, any reporting requirements by the city. It's something that we've done together for many years.
You can vouch for it.
Yes.
Well, part of the thing that we have done with ARPA is we'll talk about leveraging dollars. Like every dollar that we put into some of these programs, that another agency like United Way or other private donors would kind of match it, so we can get more bang for the buck. I hate that term, but that's just the way we talk about it.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening here? Do you see that there'll be some other funds that these funds would be leveraged with?
Yes, absolutely. This particular recommendation, in addition to the series of recommendations that are coming in, so for instance, we've invested $50,000 so far for a culturally responsive childcare partnership. Family and Childcare Resources is a partner in that.
Yes.
We have additional dollars set aside through United Way for this year for that and other childcare innovations. So this is a piece of that total package.
I'm supportive of this, without a doubt. I think it's a great use of the dollars. My only regret is I wish we kind of would have known about it a little earlier in the process, because I've been critical of some of the things we allocated ARPA towards. There are a lot of things that are important, I know that, but this seems like a good use of ARPA dollars, and that it would impact many families. During the pandemic and childcare and the situations we had at different times in the past, we had to rely on in-home childcare. To have more of these opportunities to Green Bay families would have been very good, especially earlier in this whole process. So I'm definitely supportive. I just wish we could allocate a little more dollars to it, but I understand the other priorities that are before us. So, thank you.
Grateful for any investment that would be possible. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Alder Galvin?
Have you been able to calculate how many slots you think you might be able to help create with this program?
It varies based on the needs of each individual potential provider who would contact us to apply for this. We talk about using these dollars to support both group centers, which would have higher capacities, as well as family providers who would have a capacity of potentially 8 children. But again, since the pandemic, we lost in the city of Green Bay over 500 slots. So I think
there's a wide range, right?
And I get it. I mean, I've got 3 daughters with 4 children.
Right.
And them scrambling around trying to find daycare, and then hopefully their boss will allow them to adjust their hours, and and my wife end up running and picking up and getting the kids to other places and things like that. I mean, it's hard, and I think the more we can do, one, to provide good environments for these children, but two, to allow their parents to be able to work and make the income they need to be able to have a decent life here in Green Bay. I think the more we can do, the better. I mean, there's been a shortage forever, but I know the pandemic really impacted it hard. And we see that. We've got the jobs out there. We can't get the people to work. And if we can get more decent daycare programs up and running out there, the better it's going to be for our community as a whole.
And I would add too, building on that, this is something new and innovative for our city. It's not something that, where there's a pot of, for instance, new state funding coming through or any existing state funding coming through to support local child care providers in this way. So it truly would be, in my opinion, groundbreaking for.
Well, I think it would be good. If this works, I mean, I look at it like our water program to remove lead pipes. I mean, we're nationally recognized, and it would be neat if this would be something that other communities could build on and replicate to make, you know, again, better for the kids, better for the community. Thank you.
Alder Burnett?
I just have a quick question, and then Alder Campbell has his hand raised if you don't see him. You had mentioned socially responsive?
Culturally responsive.
So one of the thoughts that I've had just observing Green Bay and some of our demographic shift the last several years is, say you have a Somali refugee or Somali immigrant that comes
Did you
to
read
Bay-
our recent news article?
No, I did not.
Great question.
But oftentimes I think like there are a lot of recent arrivals to Green Bay, very close-knit family, very culturally, there's a lot of deep respect for families, but I often think like, how hard must it be for those folks to navigate the complexities of American society? And so if we can leverage or put resources towards them to train them to make sure they're qualified and get the right paperwork and that they know what a lot of out-of-home daycares know already. Is that what this is going towards as well?
Well, yes. So we have the first piece that Sarah talked about, the culturally responsive childcare, is a partnership between Brown County United Way, our agency, and CAMSA, which supports the Somali refugees. And one of the things that we've been working on is providing some of the entry-level training that people would need to work in childcare. And our first class was completed back in October. We had 27 Somali women complete one of the classes that's required for working in the child care industry. And we have a second class going on right now with about 35 participants. Because it isn't just part of it is the fact that if I'm a Somali family and I want to bring my child to childcare because I have to work, I go to a child care program, but the food that they're serving for lunch doesn't meet our cultural needs. So we want to make sure that families feel welcome in child care programs and that their children are served items that are appropriate for them to eat, but also that there are child care providers who look like the families do. So there's been a lot of excitement around this, around the classes, both within our area as well as the state level as well.
Good.
So,
all right, thank you.
We have plans this year to meet together as a partnership to talk about additional populations to expand to beyond the Somalis.
Yeah, Afghan refugees recently, and some good Congolese. Okay. No other questions?
Thank you. Alder Campbell?
Yes, I just have a few questions for you ladies. And I understand this about 25 years of child care. My spouse was involved in United Way back way at the beginning, and many organizations, including the CP Center. When you talk about in-home, I mean, organized, qualified daycares is very good. As you know, in Green Bay, and I've seen it grow over 25 years in the day, and been involved in Brown County ourselves before that. So my question, because I know what she goes through, she's gonna kill me for this, is about hiring qualified staff. So it's really hard to find qualified staff because they can hardly afford to pay them. This is my concern. Because they can go work somewhere for about the same money, and then you have people that have been there for 10 years, and they have to increase them too, just to be fair across the board. But it raises the question where this money is actually going to go into the private sector. Because if you can't find quality people to teach and organize community facilities, where's the check and balance of the training? Or is it just free money that's going into that home-based business?
So part of what we've talked about is, we know that there is a population of people who are providing care in their homes right now in the city of Green Bay that are unregulated, but may still be legal. And then there are those who are unregulated and might be illegal. So what we would like to do is help people who are already providing that care in the pathway to get regulated, which then could increase the capacity of children that they serve, as well as increasing their education, increasing their income, which then again promotes the economy. So this would not, my intention would not be to just, here's some money for you, and here's, just because you're watching children, this would be really promoting the regulation to support quality childcare.
And, you know, when you talk, this all comes around to cost and money all the way around across the board. You know, and I'm quite aware of, since the pandemic, the CDC rules have really, really, really pushed into a gray area that I know for a fact now, where there is no gray area. But I will say, from her sharing of knowledge and frustration, that even organized private ones, not in-home, we're definitely pushed beyond the boundaries, and sometimes people had to look the other way. And there was a lot of dancing around town going on, and trying to just find care, number one, too. And like I said, you couldn't go to work, and then it's the breakdown of a teacher in a room, and outside of it, coming into a facility. I mean, there's so much regulation with the CDC. I personally hope something can be done into the private residential type, because there's always going to be a shortage of daycare, and limits are going to be pushed, I guess. So I'd like to see this important. I think this is a good place to kind of get things back on track. Thanks.
So thank you, Alder Campbell, for those questions. One question I did have, you alluded to state before, and I know the state has put out a number of ARPA grant applications. Most recently, I know there was one that was open for daycare-related facilities. So two questions. One, are you aware of that? And if you are, is that what you were saying before, that this program doesn't fit the state bucket?
Correct. So the state has a couple of projects going on. They have the Child Care Counts program, which I believe is funded through ARPA dollars. That is for programs that are already regulated and already open and caring for children. And what we're looking at serving with this project is the programs that are not regulated that would not qualify for those Child Care Counts dollars. There also are some other funds from the state, scholarships to provide, or scholarships for credit-based education through the TEACH program. Again, that is for people who are already working at a regulated child care program. So we're not looking to duplicate those services. We're looking at meeting needs before they would even qualify for those other dollars.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, Alders, any other questions for our guests? Okay, thank you for speaking on this item. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on this? Any ARPA item, not just the daycare, any ARPA item. I see we've got Baird Creek with their hand raised. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, good evening. This is Howard Friedman. The address is 1270 Main Street, Green Bay, 54301. And I'm Holly Baseman, the Executive Director for the Foundation. I just wanted to touch base on items, I believe it's 5.6, which is the stormwater management for Baird Creek. It is Burgundy Court in, I believe, Twin Lakes. And just wanted to speak up again. I was at the last meeting where we discussed this and it got referred back to staff. And so I just wanted to kind of find out where we are with that and speak up to the validation of the projects and the issue that there is with all of the runoff coming from these two gully issues, especially Burgundy Court, with it impacting neighborhoods there. So just kind of wanting an update.
Well, I can speak from a planning perspective, and that is, I mean, Finance Committee tonight is taking up this item, all the ARPA items as a recommendation from staff. You know, before the meeting is over, we'll ultimately make a final recommendation, albeit it may have some modifications, and that will go to the full city council next week, Tuesday. And council, of course, can make a decision to approve, not approve, hold, and modify. So while we appreciate you being here tonight, it's important for us to hear your feedback. I would also maybe point out that, you know, if you want to stay in tune with this project proposal through its entire process, it would be probably a good idea to be present for the council meeting as well.
Okay. Yep.
As far as the actual work itself, I assume that the work would not be done without funding, but I would need to defer to Director Grenier on that item.
That is correct.
Okay. Alder Hutchison.
Yeah, to that issue, I just wanted to let this committee know, I've been contacted by 3 or 4 people in these neighborhoods, the Burgundy neighborhood, regarding this work, all asking the same question, what's the status of this? Because there's high interest in this. There's a lot of erosion going on in their backyards, and there's a lot of concern from these individuals regarding this project. Just wanted to make sure this committee heard that, and Common Council will hear that as well.
Thank you, Alder. Any questions for our speaker? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Holly, for your comments. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this item?
No, Alder Johnson.
Anybody else? If not, we will entertain a motion to close the floor.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Galvin, second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The floor is now closed. Alders, anything you want to discuss? Any additional questions you have for staff? Alder Burnett.
I am happy to say that I'm very, very impressed with everything, and I can get on board with pretty much everything that was proposed. Do have a couple thoughts, a couple concerns. One would be the shipyard project. I know it is pending on a resolution, or the shipyard bid dollars, $25,000. It's pending a resolution, and you know, I know of people, you know, connected to that group, and I know that they have taken some positions. They've kind of almost seem like they're separating from the Broadway district. That's like a standalone. So if we allocate something of ARPA, $25,000 is a rather substantial amount of money for something that we haven't even approved a resolution to authorize. So why would we be earmarking $25,000 for something that the council hasn't yet approved?
Yeah, Alder Burnett, you know, and of course I'll let Director Schulte speak to that as well, but I did put this item in. You know, they're not part of the Broadway district, this area, and this is an area that hasn't been represented by a bid. One of the reasons I put this in there, though, and I added the contingency for the resolution, is because that is something we've been working towards. But really, at the end of the day, the types of improvements, investments that would be made down there would be in conjunction with our staff, right? So our staff will ultimately make the final recommendations, but these are all public improvements that benefit anybody, right? So that area deserves investment just like any other part of our city, whether you're talking about benches or garbage cans or other streetscape amenities. So that's why I was comfortable still putting this forward, even without, I think quite frankly, we could even drop the resolution piece, because I do think that the investment down there still is justifiable and warranted to kind of help really take a part of our city that's that's blighted and underrepresented and maybe bring some, some useful investment down in that area. But I would also defer to Director Stechulski to respond to that.
Yeah, real quick before he does, Alderman Johnson, I grew up in that neighborhood, so without a doubt, I know that community, that neighborhood, that business district could use a lot of improvement, and it's not that I'm objecting to the 25,000. One thing that I have noticed that makes me kind of uncomfortable as a city representative is the shipyard was a project of the city long before this group of, as far as I can tell, loosely connected individuals at this point in businesses have kind of adopted the shipyard name. That makes me very uncomfortable because we don't have a resolution authorizing them to be known as that, as recognized as a bid. When you answer your question, can you kind of, circle and include that in your answer? Like, what's our position as a city at this point?
Yeah, absolutely, Alderman. I'll answer that question first. That's probably, I guess, the tougher question in the room. Certainly, I think both staff and I believe alders certainly have expressed some concerns over, I guess, the brand confusion, for, I guess, lack of a better term, between the two, the one organization versus the city's project. We have evidence of media reaching out to the wrong entity for questions, and there just have been examples of obviously not being clear who was really responsible for what aspect. That has been one of the points of conversation that we have had with the Shipyard District, Inc. That is a 501c. They are registered. They are a legal entity. They do exist. In terms of discussions internally with our legal department, didn't feel that there was a tremendous amount of legal standing from like a trademark standpoint. So really just trying to kind of work with them in terms of just on an operational basis thing that definitely does create some degree of confusion. How could we move forward, essentially try to eliminate that and going forward, regardless of if it's named or renamed or how we would proceed on that. There are a couple of initiatives that staff is kind of looking into that probably aren't quite ready for public discussion yet, but at some point we'll certainly want to have that with council when the time is appropriate. Again, believe in, certainly Alder Johnson mentioned this specifically. I think we have started off with looking at this $25,000 as kind of an operating assistance grant, similar to what was given to the existing business improvement districts. This entity is thinking about becoming a business improvement district. They've got some ideas. It started off as that kind of grant to them to kind of assist with that. I think we've kind of evolved that over the time where we're looking at specifically now really, let's target that towards public improvements on that stretch of the Broadway corridor specifically. So I think banners have been discussed, benches have been discussed, other sorts of streetscaping type of improvements have been really the kind of the main areas of conversation at this point.
So can we have that flow through the city without a organized, recognized bid, to allow $25,000 to be in their operating budget and have them administer these programs? That what makes me uncomfortable. No disrespect.
Well, I think the point that when I structured that was that it would flow to the city.
Okay.
But those decisions would be made in conjunction with the organization and their board of directors. But to your point, I think we can make investments in that area that are outside of the scope of the brand. So for example, you could say, no, we're not going to pay for branded banners until that issue is resolved. However, we can pay for other investments in that area that are a public good, that everybody benefits from, that are, not branded.
Yeah, and I can support that. My question though is because it's not an organized bid at this point. There are businesses that could benefit from public improvements who may not be on board with that group of shipyard group that's formed. Like when we consider the $25,000, would we make sure that those projects and those businesses are also considered, benches, signs improvement for businesses that don't identify with the shipyard district?
Yeah, absolutely, Alderman Brad. I think we very easily do, some targeted public engagement so it's open, so we actually hear from anybody who's interested. There also is a neighborhood association in that area that we know is forming. So absolutely, we could have, whatever ideas we may come up with. There's going to be plenty of opportunity, I think, for some public engagement in terms of what would residents most appreciate and benefit from, and businesses specifically in that area. I think we've certainly heard things about bicycle improvements that want to become more bike and pedestrian friendly in that particular area for customers walking around. We know that from a business standpoint, it's certainly an area of interest, but is there something that would go beyond that if we did a little bit more targeted outreach for that area? We have a very good outreach history in this neighborhood from the original shipyard project, so we do have a considerable amount to build on, but it certainly never hurts to go back out and do one more round of asking what everybody would be interested in. Absolutely.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the federal dollars, either ARPA or the first batch of federal dollars we had, I forget what it was called at the time. American Rescue, each of the 4 bids were awarded $25,000 at one point, is that correct?
That is correct.
So this would be like, even though it's not recognized, that district, because I don't want my comments to be negative towards the shipyard district. I want it to be successful. I want it to be a part of our city organization. I just very uncomfortable with the things that I perceive to be the case, but you've corrected as Alderman
I think
Johnson.
staff would be very comfortable with operating it as, keeping it as a city, dedicated city fund for specific public improvement projects in that corridor.
Okay.
So.
Good deal. No other questions? Alderman Johnson?
Yeah, and Alderman, just one more thing I would add to that. I think much like a lot of the programs that are proposed here, I think additional documentation and procedures will need to be established. So while we may, obviously, withstanding what the committee decides here today, while we may say, hey, we're going to earmark funding for this, some of these cases, a grant process needs to be established, or some other type of process might need to be established before the funds are actually expended, and I think this can certainly fit in that bucket, and I would be comfortable with staff deciding what that process looks like. Any other questions from alders? Alder Steuer?
Yeah, a little with Director again. Some of these might be pretty straightforward, but the number 7-2-211 for $300,000 for a 3-year Director of Urban Plan and Design. And I've asked you this before, but can staff handle this area if the request would fail?
On current workload and staffing conditions, knowing we're undertaking the comprehensive plan update and particularly like the JBS project, I would probably, at least not for the current, this coming year.
So there's a lot on the table there. Okay. Then again, you maybe touched on it, but the benefits that are measurable here, I mean, the fact is that you're redoing a plan, so to speak, right? Comprehensive?
Certainly the comprehensive plan, but I think in terms of, obviously working with Director Engineers Department in terms of looking at specific design elements for the downtown streetscapes and so forth in the downtown area. We have several documents plan documents that are floating out there. Some have been adopted by ordinance or resolution, some of them haven't been. So there's multiple kind of loose ends, I guess, so to speak, on doing that. Plus, a lot of those documents are fairly dated. So this would actually be an effort to kind of, number one, bring them up to more current expectations and what folks would like to see. To Alder Burnett's point, in terms of some of the updated design guidelines and standards. And also be able to apply that really to across the downtown. There should be some things that are unifying elements for like both sides of the river for downtown areas and Old Main and those areas. But then there's also needs to be some areas that allow those areas to be unique and define themselves. Okay. So this would be kind of a comprehensive position that would allow a dedicated staff person to actually to work on all of those areas.
All right, and then it's listed as a 3-year position. What scenarios happen in year 4 possibly? We'll have to wait and see, right?
Yeah, I think right now the way it's positioned right now, the way it's been described is that if it's wanted to be continued at that point, the downtown organizations would need to basically fund that position.
Okay. And just one other point, Chair, I'd like to know about some of these other 6.2-211 and 6.2-212 for $150,000 and $50,000 arts grant and the rotating arts. I firmly believe that, the pandemic and other things have really put a damper on art, culture, and different things in this community. I really feel that those 2 items would really help bring things back. And, if you're looking at quality of life, I think art, culture, music, those are all very, very important. So I'm very much in support of those. Thank you.
Director Specialty, just on that Director of Urban Design position, this was obviously a communication I submitted. Spoke with Director Specialty earlier, and maybe more directly answered your question, Alder Steuer. This would be a position employed by Downtown Green Bay if approved. And there is sort of that acknowledgement that the position will be funded after the 3-year period. So, but just not on the city tax dollar, which was a nice way, I think, for us to kind of maybe shift some of that responsibility and burden off to the private sector for continued benefit for the taxpayer. One thing, though, that was kind of added that was not part of my original communication was a requirement for a four-way agreement with the bids. That was not something that was part of my communication, and so Director Steckschulte, if you could just maybe speak to that item in particular. Are you okay with that item going away?
Yeah, I think from our standpoint, obviously just having the one primary entity be responsible for the position is actually probably simpler from an administrative standpoint. Knowing that these organizations are already working cooperatively, from a reporting and actually investment standpoint, I think it's actually easier and more straightforward if it's just with one entity. So staff is fine with it being with DGBI, that we don't have any issues with that. So I mean, I guess it would be scratching the requirement about the four-party agreement would be, staff does not have any problems with that.
Okay, and so Alder Galvin?
So do we need to make an amendment on the, if we approve this package here, does that need to be an amendment on that approval?
I think it probably would be, certainly, I guess would be just, if everyone's comfortable with that, Alder, I think it would be best to just have that on the record.
Just on the record?
And let's, okay. And Alder Galvin, let's do this. If you want to make that amendment, let's actually wait until the motion is on the floor to approve the whole report, and then we can make amendments on that motion. That would be the appropriate procedure. So just hold on to that for a hot second. Okay. Any other discussions for Director Steckschulte? Okay. Alders, broadly speaking, any other questions for staff? Any other comments? I think the comment that I would also up is when I looked at this and Alder Burnett said it, and I'll reinforce it, I think the staff did a really, really nice job with balancing a lot of competing interests. And I think if any Alder were to look at this and be honest with themselves, I think we all got something we wanted and we all lost something we wanted. But I think the wins, I'm hoping, are better than the losses for most of us or all of us, so that we can look at this and say, hey, just about everybody in our community is benefiting from a program here. I think that ought to be our ultimate goal, is to service as many members of our community as we can with this one-time investment. I think we're doing a lot of good things here that would achieve that goal. So I just want to commend staff for bringing back a proposal that I think is well thought out, makes the right compromises without sacrificing really important investments. So kudos to you. With that, and again, unless there's any questions, any further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the proposal.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Alder Galvin and then a second by Alder Hutchison. Alder Galvin, if you wanted to propose an amendment, now would be the time to do it.
And that's what I'd like to add that amendment on. I mean, I understand, just in case, I'd like that amendment in there, that line be struck from the part of the proposal.
Okay, that's a motion. Is there a second on the amendment?
A second.
Okay, the motion by Galvin, a second by Hutchison. Because that amendment technically contains my employer, I think it'd be safe if I abstain from that. Let's say, is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0-1. Any other amendments, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to advance the council say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, good discussion, folks. We're on to item number 6. For consideration of possible action to approve a limited conflict waiver for the firm of Renning, Lewis, and Lacey. Staff, I presume you want to go into closed session with this?
Yes.
Do we need to go into closed session?
Yes, Alder, yes.
Some yeses, okay, entertain a motion. I'll make a motion that we go into closed session. Is there a second?
Galvin seconded.
Second.
Okay, so I didn't hear that. All right, so I guess I gotta read it down. The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.5 subsection 1 subsection T. Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for a government body which rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation which it is or is likely to become involved. Committee will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 2. Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session if appropriate and to consider the remainder of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are in closed session.
Before we stop recording, I just wanted, while we're still in the record, I just wanted to suggest that you, and this is up to the committee, because it looks like we have 3 items that are all going into closed session, all under the same language. So instead of having everybody shuffle back and forth, we can take up all 3 and just stay in
I would
closed
make a
session.
motion to reconsider the agenda and combine items 6, 7, and 8 as one item under closed session, which has already been done.
Second.
So there's a motion by second, motion by Johnson, second by Galvin. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just,
Alder Burnett.
just for the sake of public disclosure and public access, were there members of the public that you know of who were in the audience who may have wanted to
I
speak to
don't
any of
believe
these?
so,
Or in
no.
the, okay, good.
Right.
I think we're good. All right.
And
Good
you
question,
can always ask, once we go back into open session,
Okay.
or once everybody is back in the room, if there was
Yeah.
anybody
No,
that
we
wanted to
combined
speak.
it,
Yes.
obviously with them leaving, that's all. So as long
Yeah.
as you feel we're comfortable with.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because it's all being recorded, so we're good.
Are we off?
Now we can turn off, yes.
Make a motion.
All right, we're rolling.
Yeah, I think we can.
I'm going to make a motion to separate items 6, 7, the motion to reconsider the agenda, separate items 6, 7, 8, since I made a motion before to combine.
We're also, Brian, we have to also.
Return to open session.
We have
Yeah, sorry, we're entertaining that motion.
motion to go back in open session.
Second.
All right, then a motion by Galvin, second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And again, I would make a motion to reconsider the agenda and separate items 6, 7, and 8.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll go with Galvin and Hutchinson on that one. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Back to item 6 then. For consideration, possible action to approve a limited conflict waiver for the firm of Rennie, Lewis, and Lacy. Entertain a motion?
Motion to proceed as directed in closed session.
Second.
I think we can just make a motion to approve on this one.
Either or is fine.
All right.
Okay? Alder Burnett, how do you want to word it?
As long as I got the green light from the city attorney and the chairman, I'm fine with making a motion to approve.
Second.
Good. It's a motion by Burnett, a second by Hutchison. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 7, for consideration, possible action on Jam Investments versus City of Green Bay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to proceed as directed, have staff proceed as directed in closed session.
I'll second that. We have a motion by Burnett, a second by Johnson. Alder Burnett.
Yeah, prior to us going into closed session, I had made the comment about if there are any members of the public who wanted to speak to this item because we combined them and went in closed session, and just want to make it known that there's no members of the public here.
Okay, perfect. Good observation. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 8, report of the Claims Committee. Any discussion? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that. We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Johnson. Alder Burnett.
Similar as the previous point, there are no members of the public here looking to speak to the item.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item F, informational, number 1, 22, Contingency account, $157,297. Unobligated is $57,297. 2023 contingency account is $250,000. Director Ellenbecker, do we have finalization from the Parks Department on 2022?
No, at this point, there's one outstanding item yet that they were trying to confirm their dollar amount, so there's one more item. I would expect we would have that answer for you for the next finance committee meeting.
I presume the reason 2022 is continuing to be reported is because of that outstanding item?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2, the next finance committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 14th, 2023 at 4:30 p.m.
Alder Johnson, Alder Johnson. Well, the question is we have a meeting scheduled for February 14th, and then we have one scheduled for February 28th, but the next council meeting will be March 7th. So I do believe Chief Falls did send something also to Alder Galvin to see whether or not we would want to cancel the 14th and just have it on the 28th, since you only have one council meeting.
It's my daughter's birthday.
It's Valentine's Day.
14.
20.
Yeah. I'm fine with that if there's no items of urgency. If something comes up that is time sensitive, obviously I would request that we do hold that meeting then. The other thing, just be sensitive to the load, right? If it's a lot of agenda items, then we may want to reconsider that. But if you think it's an average amount, then I'm good with it.
I concur.
Alder Hutchinson, you had your hand raised?
I was pointing at Director.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. All right, folks, thanks for tolerating me being virtual tonight. I appreciate it. Hope it wasn't too much of a disruption.
No,
No,
well,
it wasn't.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So motion to adjourn. What are the temps there, Brian?
55.
Oh,
Not great.
Oh,
Not awful.
come
All
here.
right, so we have a motion by Galvin with a second.
I'd second it.
Burnett, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned.